This is the Breeders' Cup Sprint Monster Podcast presented by Spendthrift Farm, home of North America's #1 second crop sire, Vacoma. In the Money Media YouTube channel, the Monster Pods for the Breeders' Cup are back, and I'm so happy to be here with a man who's been on a whole lot of them. He comes to you in your living room, on your desk regularly, whether it is with the fine work he does over at FanDuel TV or NBC. He is a co-founding member of what is now the In the Money Media Network, back when it was just a podcast with some letters attached to it. He's Matt Bernier. What's up, buddy?
Hey, man, we're counting down, right? I mean, we're down to the final few weeks, the nitty gritty leading into the Breeders' Cup. This is when you got to crystallize those opinions. We've got to wait and see what the odds look like. But now you got to at least have some idea going into it what you're planning on doing.
The horse we've been talking about the most for this race, for the sprint across the network, is Ben Tornado. For a minute there, when there were all these other horses who might be turning up, he was looking like he might be a decent price, and he was interesting then. Now he's sort of hardening at the top of the market. This is a tough horse. This is a cool horse. Am I wrong that he is really the horse to beat? I'm with the market here, thinking this is the one that I want in this spot.
I don't think so. I mean, I'm just pulling up the offshore odds right now. I'm with you. I mean, I think he's strictly the horse to beat. I'm seeing some fours, which seems crazy to me. He is far shorter, far more likely winner than a 4-1 shot, in my opinion. And I think as we get closer and closer, assuming things shake out the way we think they're going to, and we'll talk about it, I mean, I could make a serious argument that based on his last run at Churchill and then the run in the Breeders' Cup last year, that he should be somewhere into sort of the 8-5 range. So if you can get a big number on him now, fire away.
Yeah, he might be. I mean, this is a tough Florida bred. He came a little bit out of nowhere to me in the sprint last year, doing everything but win against Straight No Chaser. Then comes back one race, runs that career best buyer of 108. He's very, very interesting. We'll be monitoring him with great interest. Maybe we'll use that form line of last year's Breeders' Cup to segue and talk about that last run from Straight No Chaser. Matt, I absolutely hated it. I thought he couldn't lose on paper. I thought he couldn't lose. Halfway through the race, he just went away so tamely. I'm going to have trouble accepting any he was short type excuses. Am I underselling the champ?
No, because I'm with you. I mean, I felt the same way. It was one of those things, not even so much that he lost, but for him to pack it in as readily as he did, it's not what you want to see leading into the hardest race in theory of your career. And I know he's done some great things. He's brought the connections on quite a ride here, and he's been a champion sprinter. There's nothing that you can knock about him other than coming into this race. I just don't think he's going to be a very good bet. And if he had done any running at Santa Anita in that prep race, I would have been okay and said, you know what, maybe he just needed the layoff. Man, I thought he laid down pretty badly in deep stretch.
It was a no finish trip in the notes for sure. The horse that won, Imagination, this is one I can spin either way. To be honest, I'm leaning towards the more cynical interpretation, which was the figure wasn't 100. The main market rival went away ridiculously tamely. And there was something about the visual impression of the run in the lane that I didn't love. Now, the other way of looking at it is, hey, here's this horse who's being reinvented as a sprinter. It was almost like well, here's this race for him. Why not? It seemed that he even ended up in this race. He was very, very wide. If you're a ground loss person, you can upgrade him for that. Which side of the fence do you fall on with Imagination? Contender or pretender?
I'm with you. I think he's more of a pretender, and it's part and parcel because of the straight no chaser no show. But on top of that, I'm with you. Not only did the race not come back all that fast, I mean, when you watch him, he's hanging on his left lead for the duration of the run. I know he was wide, but yeah, put it this way: if he wins the Breeders' Cup Sprint, then this is probably a fairly soft group. It's already a questionably soft group going into it, but if he wins, and I don't mean this as shade, I just is he does he look like a Breeders' Cup Sprint winner to you? He doesn't to me.
No. Let's talk about the horse that was third in last year's Breeders' Cup Sprint and will be representing the Eastern Seaboard form. Mulligan comes here. Not the prep connections would have picked in the 4-go, but had some pretty impressive efforts before that. We'll might as well talk about Bookham Dano in tandem. He'd be interesting in here. That sure doesn't sound like he's going to go based on comments from the trainer. So I don't know, but we'll deal with them both. But first, let's start with Mulligan. Can he bounce back? I mean, he's run some good races and some fast figures.
I think it would be premature to just write him off. I think my biggest concern for him is the configuration of the race. If you told me it were at 7 furlongs, I would love his chances. I've never really looked at him as a 6 furlong type. And that could be an issue for a few of these horses that should they or should they not go in here. 3/4 is a wildly different game than 7/8. And to me, Mulligan is at his absolute best when you get him out to 7. Maybe this 6 is a little bit sharp, but on talent alone, you could make the serious case that he is among, if not the most talented in the field.
Let's talk about Dano, and we can use that as a segue to some of these other will they or won't they type runners in the race before we loop back on some of the others that won key preps. If Dano was kind of a silly question, maybe, but I'll ask it anyway. If Dano were here, would you like him? And part and parcel, do you think there's any chance they reverse field, or is this a done deal?
Well, I'll answer the second part first, I guess. I mean, it seems far be it me to sit here and tell someone what to do with their horse. But if I were going to be arguably the favorite in a Breeders' Cup race for however many millions of dollars, and he was healthy and happy, I'd probably go. But apparently they don't want to do that, and they're going to point to next year. I mean, that's a big assumption that he's going to be this good again next year. But to each their own. Neither here nor there. If he were to run in this race, I think he'd be vying for favoritism. I may still lean Ben Tornado, but I wouldn't argue with anyone that said Bookham Dano, given who he has defeated, how many different racetracks he's done it at in different varieties of running styles. I wouldn't fault anybody that said he was the one that actually was the horse to beat. But yeah, it's going to be one of the more. I would love to be a fly on the wall in the barn in the days leading into and the days afterward, should they not go, especially if something crazy happens and there's a result that just seems off the walls. You look at it and you go, what did we do? I mean, you want to talk about fumble in the bag.
There is that possibility. Who knows? Maybe there's something else going on, and this was a chance to stick up for Paco. Who knows? But sure doesn't seem like he's going to show up.
They say breed the best and hope for the best.
Makoma broke well on the outside.
But you don't expect to get speed like this.
It is Makoma, the one to catch. Makoma has a 5-length lead in this Grade 1 corner. Makoma continues the battle on down at the rail. It is Makoma who's going to win the Met Mile.
Now, the other one I want to bring up isn't a will he or won't he. It's a will she or won't she. On the shows earlier in the week, I was talking after the success of Tamara last weekend that they might think about Copian for the distaff, because I sure haven't thought her longer efforts were bad at all. But now the rumors are popping up and she's appeared in the betting for the sprint. Would you give Copian a chance in this race? And if you were advising the team, which race would you have them point to?
Initially, because I listened to you and Nick chat about it, and I agreed. I kind of just assumed it was going to be the distaff because I don't think she ran poorly in the Hirsch. And I know she got beat by Seismic Beauty, but who's to say she can't turn the tables? And then I read the article with Mandela mentioning the sprint, and I started thinking about it a little bit more. And even with Torpedo Anna maybe regressing, and maybe she doesn't even go to the distaff, that race still seems like the top could go any number of ways, whether it's Seismic Beauty or Cavalieri. If you want to go with nitrogen, or you want to look for somebody that's kind of on the come up. And then you look at this division, and suddenly it's like, okay, well, if it's not Ben Tornado, I can poke holes in just about everybody else. So, and even with that, I would argue the one-turn race that Copian ran, the few of them anyway, the beginning of the year, are every bit as impressive as what Ben Tornado did. She would sort of fit that concern I would have with Mulligan as well, though. I'm not convinced that 6 would be her sweet spot. I think she probably wants a little bit more to work with. Having said that, I would probably, if you just told me right now, head to head, I'm seeing 6s and 8s versus 3s and 4s. Talent wise, I don't think there's that much difference between Copian and Ben Tornado. I might still give the slightest of edges as far as overall chances go to Ben Tornado, but I think I might bet Copian.
That's very interesting, and that's a story we're going to be following to see if we can figure out where she's going to end up. There is a Breeders' Cup race with her name on it. Which will it be? Will they really put those 2 fillies in the Filly and Mare Sprint? Some of the early articles made it sound like they would, but I wonder if for an operation like that, they may come up with a different plan to maybe try to get 2 bites at the apple in different Breeders' Cup races. We shall see. Patriot Spirit, we'll talk about him quickly. Loved him in the Vosburgh, had a very easy trip. It didn't come back that fast. I just can't see him tangling with the best of those out west. Am I underselling him?
Easy trip in a slow race, kind of hard to reconcile a slow fig, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. He probably was supposed to run a little bit faster there. How about Nakatomi? This is a horse we've talked about for a couple of years now as a potential Breeders' Cup Sprint type. It did not work out for him last year, but he comes here off a win. What do you think of his chances?
Well, you and I chatted about him not too long ago, and I said, I've never loved him. I think he's a nice horse. I think Ward's done a tremendous job with him. And I look at this now, and I think, I believe he hit the board a couple of years ago in the sprint. I kind of look at it and think maybe he could be an underneath key. If you just kind of, crystallize at the top, and let's say it is Ben Tornado and Copian, or maybe it's Ben Tornado and Straight No Chaser. Maybe your key to the race is actually just Nakatomi running second or third.
That's interesting, an interesting approach. And those bottom up type constructions in Breeders' Cup can pay big dividends. Couple of more. This one, okay, I'll admit, we're 10 minutes in. If you stuck with us for 10 minutes, you can handle the truth here. We're recording this many days before it drops. And between now and when this video drops, we're going to have another run from Lovesick Blues, who was so impressive, ran so big this summer out on the West Coast with a big fat, I think it was a 108 Beyer speed figure. What does Lovesick Blues have to do to get in the conversation for a Breeders' Cup Sprint serious contender?
I don't know, because his final prep is down the hill at Santa Anita, and I don't know that you're going to glean anything from that, good or bad. If he runs poorly, you just kind of throw your hands up. And even though primarily he's been a grass horse, I don't know, Pete. I mean, he is the kind of horse that I think price has to be your guide. If he's 8 to 1, he's not that interesting to me. If he's for whatever reason 15 or 20, and he's got that big run already at Del Mar under his belt, and he runs well enough going down the hill as that final prep, I could spin a case that if the big horses don't fire, he's got as good a chance as anyone to win this race. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you I love him, but I also wouldn't be offended if somebody else said that they were all in on him, just given the price compared to his likelihood of winning.
Yeah. My last question for you will be to ask you if there's anybody else we should bring in, maybe at a wild price for this race. But I'm just going to throw out an idea while you think about that. This is not confirmed or anything, but when we last spoke with Larry Roman about his stable Star Banishing, he did say that all 3 races would be under consideration for his horse. Classic, I'm doubting they're going to do that after the last run. Dirt Mile, maybe. But he also did say maybe the Sprint. As we're talking through this race with his toughness, I wouldn't rule him out as a horse that could have an impact in here. I don't know about tangling with Ben Tornado at the end of the day, but he's an interesting horse to maybe get a piece if they end up here. I'm going to probably do something small with him wherever he turns up, except the Classic. If he's in either of the other 2 races, I'm going to have him on tickets somewhere just because I admire him so much as a racehorse, and we've been following that story since Larry got involved with the horse. Any further thoughts, Matt, on Banishing or any of these others?
I would highly advise against the Classic, but these other 2 spots, the Sprint, I could see him maybe getting a piece. I think you could make it the case that looking at this Dirt Mile picture, you've got Mystic Dan. We'll see what some of the other connections choose to do. But on his best day, Banishing is right there with Mystic Dan. If not, you could even say probably a little bit better. To me, if he goes in the Dirt Mile, he is one of on the short list of win contenders. In the Sprint, I would say he's more of a fringe, and in the Classic, he's got no chance.
Right.
But the Dirt Mile, I would be very interested in going to Banishing, because he's danced every dance. Really, the only duds that he's run this year have been at 9 furlongs at Churchill Downs. Otherwise, I mean, what else can you really ask for a horse like this? So I think if you're looking to try to win a Breeders' Cup race, the Dirt Mile will be the way to go. If he ran in the Sprint, I could give him a piece.
Good stuff. Any other wild thoughts, crazy horses to bring in, or you think we've covered the main contenders here?
No, I think we've hit kind of the nuts and bolts of them. I mean, I think it's going to be an interesting race, and it'll get really interesting if Copian does go. If she doesn't go, I don't want to say it's Ben Tornado's to lose, but it kind of seems that way to me anyway. But if the filly runs, at the very least, added intrigue.
We're going to have final answers in the form of grid picks that'll be part of our In the Money Plus service. There's a full Breeders' Cup package on there you don't want to miss. Trip notes are in there, figure equivalencies for foreign horses, inthemoneypodcast.com/plus to check that one out. And then, of course, we'll have our final answer show free right here on the In the Money Media YouTube channel, to which you should already be subscribed. And while you're doing that, drop us a comment. Let us know who you think is going to win this year's Breeders' Cup Sprint. Matt, always a pleasure. I kept you much longer than I said, but I was having too much fun. Sue me.
Hey, man, anytime you need me, I got you.